Taki.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I wonder if Jonathan Coleman wrote that speech as well, and I suggested to the member Melissa Lee that she might want to cut the ties with the political maestro Jonathan Coleman, because it's certainly not doing her any favours. She basically outlined all the great policies that Labor has already announced, policies which the public of New Zealand like, and said that National opposes every single one of them, like paid parental leave. And I just want to clear something up before I get into my speech, Mr Speaker, which is Labor's record in government, because under Labor we had the lowest unemployment in the OECD, Miss Lee. We were asset positive for the first time, because when the National opposition were telling us to squander our surpluses on tax cuts, we paid off debt. The debt problems we have in New Zealand are largely with the private sector, because the Labor government did such a good job paying off government debt. Such a good job that the IMF, not a left-wing kind of wonky organisation, said that New Zealand was one of the best-placed countries in the world to weather the global financial crisis because of the position that Michael Cullen and the last Labor government left us in. So let's get those facts straight before the National Party spin themselves out and get so dizzy that they can't stand up anymore with all their Crosby texter lines. Mr Speaker, the legacy of this National government after 2 years is broken promises, because John Key promised higher standards for ministers and higher standards for MPs. What have we had in 2 years? We've had Bill English, Richard Worth, Phil Heatley, Rodney Hyde, David Garrett, Chris Finlayson and Pansy Wong, all falling short of those standards, with many of them having to step down from ministerial positions or resign from Parliament. We also had Paula Bennett breaching the Privacy Act when she viciously and cold-heartedly released the details of welfare beneficiaries who dared to stand up in public and question the cuts that she was putting in place and the untruths that she was telling about those women. We also had the Pacific Island Development Agency, which was going to get a whole whack of money in the budget, which wasn't going out to tender to anyone else. This is an agency closely linked to the National Party, until members on this side of the House raised enough questions about the shonkiness of that arrangement that the government had to back down and actually put that out to tender. And I want to talk about another issue which hasn't been raised as much, Mr Speaker, and that's the issue of MP spouses being appointed to political positions. Because under Labor, we were quite clear this was something that would not happen. MP spouses would not be put into top political jobs. It was not appropriate. So far, we've seen a number of these in the National Party. We've seen, and I want to congratulate Hekia Parata, who's being sworn in as a minister today, right now. All the very best to her. But of course, her husband has been appointed to a major political position, the head of the TEC. And the reason I raise this is because I've had a number of people at home raise concerns with me about the regional panels for the government's Community Response Fund. Now, this is a fund that's been set up for money to go to social service agencies to help them deal with the recession. Now, I can't find anywhere in the public domain the names of the people who have been appointed to the panels that hand out this money. It's not on the website. It is nowhere to be found. We've put in questions. We have not got answers from those questions. So I had a query from a member of the public who said to me, is it true that Anne Tolley, our local MP, that her husband has been appointed to the regional panel for the Community Response Fund for the Gisborne area? Is that true? Now, I don't know. I sincerely hope it's not. I think that's horribly inappropriate. A number of social service agencies in Tairāwhiti have been heavily criticising this government and Anne Tolley for the decisions that they've been making. What happens now if an organisation comes out and criticises our local MP, she then goes home and complains to her husband about it, and suddenly they're on a blacklist for the Community Response Fund and any funding that comes from that. So I would like clarification from the next National Minister to guarantee me that our local MP's husband hasn't been appointed to a board that is handing out money locally, because I think that all New Zealanders would deem that to be inappropriate, and I look forward to that being clarified. As I said, I don't know if that's true or not, but I've had it from a very reliable source, from a number of sources, in fact, who say they got that straight from MSD, from people who also thought that it was very inappropriate. Should be public information. And we shouldn't have to troll through the MSD website finding every reference to regional panels where they very kind of vaguely just say, and there will be some community representation. That is not good enough. We deserve to know who is on those panels. This is a government after 2 years of broken promises, Mr Speaker. They promised they would not increase GST. Prime Minister stared down the barrel of a TV camera when he was asked, will you increase GST after the election, and said no, he wouldn't. He's now saying, oh, I said I wouldn't do it to fund a deficit budget. Well, guess what? He did. We've got a deficit budget and a GST increase to help fund it. Another broken promise. They promised they would not borrow to fund tax cuts. Another broken promise. No ECE changes. Another broken promise. Broken promise after broken promise.
Speaker.